So now that we calculated the resolution that we're going to want to use, the next thing we want to think about is texel density. Um, Sounds like a funny term, but it's really just kind of how many pixels any part of the UV set is taking up. So we can apply patterns, and you saw me apply a pattern last video to kind of view what our texel density is. And then we just need to kind of choose if we want it to be even or uneven texel density. And we always want to use as much resolution of that UV space as we can. So if we're looking at this right here, this has 3 different pieces all laid out at different texel densities. So when the checkerboard's smaller, that's actually a better kind of texel density. So if I sample one of these faces, and I haven't laid out any UVs yet, so these are pretty poor examples of UVs, but you can see this bracket at the end is taking up the majority of this square. Everything else here on this cylinder is taking up these little pieces right here, and this piece is pretty decent. We're getting out of it what we can, minus that these have to be shrunk down a little bit. But they're all taking up different amounts of texel density. The way we laid it out is not even across all pieces. And what this means is if we go in for a close-up of this part, some pieces are going to have really good resolution and some are just going to fall apart. So in film, we usually tend to lean towards always having even texel density. That way we don't have to be worried about anything if we zoom in on a part. In video games, there are times that we're going to use even texel density. So if we're baking out any sort of lighting information, you probably want even texel density across your meshes. And then there's times where maybe you're doing something that's a little bit more lower res than like maybe a AAA title, or maybe it's for a handheld device, and you want more texel density or resolution to things maybe like the face that's going to be shown on camera more, or maybe it's a first-person shooter and you want more resolution to hands that are always going to be up there, and maybe you don't see the rest of the body of the character unless it's further back on screen. Those are just 2 kind of examples that I'm thinking about off the top of my head. But for film, television, we're going to definitely want even texel density. But just know there's times that you might want to vary it. So again, texel density is just how many pixels this UV space is taking up. Applying a checkerboard is the easiest way to see your texel density, and the smaller the checkerboard is, the more space it's taking up inside of the 0 to 1 UV space, which means it has a higher texel density. When the numbers are bigger, like in this little spot for the bracket, it's taking up far less space inside of there, so it has less texel density, less pixels per that UV space. So again, this really just comes down to holding good resolution on screen for your final renders. So you kind of need to understand texel density in calculating how to lay out your UVs and how big your texture maps are going to need to be.